What's going on, Workforce? Brian here, and welcome to our Level 80 Scholar Controller Guide. In this guide, we're going to be talking about my layouts, tips, and tricks, various settings that I use for managing this game on a controller. Now, whether you're a keyboard or mouse player or a controller player, all are welcome, and even if you're not level 80, this guide should help teach you the basics of using a controller, teach you some ideas about giving a general layout for the skills themselves, and hopefully set you up and set you apart from the rest of the world. Whether you're on PlayStation, whether you're on PC, whether you're on Mac, it doesn't matter. The controller is an amazing vehicle for controlling the jobs in this game. Now, I do want to say a huge shout out to all our YouTube members for sponsoring this video. Everybody who's hit that join button is amazing, and we're going to be sure to thank you more towards the end of this video. Guys, thank our members here, or consider becoming one. It really helps us out, helps us bring you these guides much faster. And so thank you to all of our YouTube members. Now, without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into the guide and really break it down for you. So as with all of our guides, today we're actually going to start with our layout. Now, muscle memory is key when it comes to playing with the controller. This is going to be the most critical aspect that it kind of goes unmentioned sometimes. You don't want to have to think about a general skill. And what I mean by that is that if you have multiple jobs, if you play this, multiple healers, or if you end up playing multiple jobs of different roles, if you have similar style effects, you want to try to put them always in the same position. It's not going to be one-to-one or 100% job to job, because obviously different jobs play different ways. But what I mean by this is, like right now I'm on Scholar. If I switch over to my White Mage or my Astrologian, you're going to notice some skills that are in the general same spot. Same thing applies for White Mage. You can see Lucid Dreaming and Rescue. Those are always going to be in the same spot. So as I play, as I do various things, especially with cross roll, you're going to notice that I put the same skills in the same spot. It's not necessarily always 100%. There are reasons for that, but I want to try to get you into that mindset, especially as MP is capped in Shadowbringers. You want to make sure that you're constantly putting Lucid Dreaming on. This is going to be a huge MP restore. This is going to make sure you don't run out of MP and find yourself kind of in a world of hurt, not able to DPS or not able to heal as necessary. Anyway, I just wanted to get that tip out of the way. Muscle memory. Let the game, let your natural reaction to things work for you. Same kind of concept for stuns and more. We'll cover that obviously as we go over all the different jobs in more detail and as I build out more of these guides. But let's go ahead and dive into my layout, and then we're going to talk about my HUD and system settings. So a number one question is, how do I get these floating bars here? I'll be sure to answer that after we go over the main layout. Now, I'm just going to tell you this. I don't use a keyboard and mouse to play the game, even though I do have access to one. Makes it a little bit easier to arrange these skills. If you're new to, or on PlayStation and you don't have access to a mouse, you can always hold down the left bumper and press the right click on the right stick, and you're going to go into virtual mouse mode. This will allow you to left trigger click any of these items and kind of rearrange it. It's obviously, I'm not the most fluid at it, but it is a useful skill to have whenever you need to rearrange things. Obviously, it's a little bit easier for a mouse, and so I'm going to demonstrate things using a mouse because I have access to one. But if you don't, you can always enter virtual mouse mode that way. Again, that's the left bumper or L1 and right stick click, essentially R3, to be able to enter that. When you do the same thing, it will exit, and then your right stick will become and give you the ability to move the camera back and forth. And if again you hold L and you move the right stick, that's going to be your nice little zoom there. So that's just kind of a little pro tip. Anyway, let's go ahead and highlight some things. Over here in the cooldown bar, this is just to help communicate different cooldowns. You can see on my expanded, which is holding down the left trigger and then the right trigger, here are these skills. I want to be able to highlight these things for me. Obviously, in this case, Aether Pact is the first thing. Because it's hidden, I want to make sure I'm seeing it, and especially when it's on cooldown, I can use it. Then I want to kind of see that. Same thing applies for Change Stratagem. This is right here as well, also on my expand across hotbar because it's hidden out of sight. Then I've got Summon Seraph. Again, this is also on my expanded hotbar, and you can see that right here in the right on the D-pad trigger button right there. So again, this has a cooldown 120 seconds, so I want to make sure that whenever I can use Summon Seraph, that I have that up on my bar. And then I have Recitation. What this is this is just an ability to basically give you another Aether Flow stack. It's very important. It also ensures critical HP is restored. So I really like to pair this with Indomitability or with Exo right here. So essentially just use this whenever it's off cooldown and enjoy. It's very handy. So I can just apply that without using that Aether Flow stack. So essentially this gives you a fourth Aether Flow stack every 90 seconds. So be aware of that. That also ensures that crits are going to happen. So there's a lot of power with this recitation. So that's why I kind of have these four as my kind of main cooldown things to be aware of as I play. Now over on my double cross hotbar left, I've got Rescue, Lucid Dreaming, Swift Cast, and Repose. So one of the things that I've found, that especially as I'm doing damage, which is on my left hotbar right here, you can see Ruin 2, Biosis, Art of War, and Broil 3. This is kind of like my Wheel of Pain, my Instacast, so if I'm on the move and I need to cast an ability, I have the ability to easy press down on that and still move. Very comfortable. I wouldn't recommend doing anything that's on your D-pad like that. You can see here because it's you're going to run into issues obviously trying to use the left stick and the D-pad. So think of left stick and your ABXY buttons and vice versa. So I try to keep things that I want to be able to use easily more on the move on this side, and the things that I can stand still for on this side, because I can't be, you can obviously, but it's going to be a little bit tricky with kind of your hand placement. So we're just going to go for there. Anyway, so if I'm doing DPS with Broil 3, etc., I can easily pop in here and turn on Lucid Dreaming. This is going to be something where I have the system automatically return me back here. I want to try to keep this up especially as often as possible. It's not a long cooldown every 60 seconds, but if you find yourself short on mana, it means you're casting a lot, which is great. Hopefully you're having fun with the job, but keep in mind that I can easily pop in, put on this because my mind is set to DPS, and then there I go. Now also I've got Whispering Dawn and Fey Illumination. These are my pet abilities that I have sort of for my fairy themselves. And then I have Sacred Soil. I have this macro to show you the macro. It's very simple. And to go and show you that macro right now, under User Macros, under Sacred Soil, I have it with the T command right here. What this does is it automatically, whatever I am targeting, that's where it's going to place, whether it's the boss or the tank, it doesn't matter. It's going to automatically place it. If it doesn't have a target, it will automatically try to use the ground effect, so I can kind of place it wherever I need. So it gives me the macro itself, gives me the most control, because obviously as a controller player, I don't want to necessarily mess with placing it. I usually want to put it on the boss or on the tank, because that's going to give me the most AoE specific ability for Sacred Soil. And then like I said here, the Wheel of Pain, this is all pretty straightforward. This is my AoE, this is my dot, this is my Instacast, and this is my big hit attack for a Scholar. Now on the right hand side, I've got Deployment Tactics, Indomitability, Aether Flow, Insuna. And then on the ABXY, I've got Physic, Adlo, Lustrate, and Succor. So this is kind of my Wheel of Healing. This is my Wheel of Pain. And these are some of the abilities I have to obviously cleanse, to do AoE heals, to basically extend this. So I kind of have the Adlo and deployment kind of together, so it helps spread that out at 120 seconds. It's very helpful. I like to be able to pop this on myself, because obviously Adlo's shield is much more powerful than Succor's shield, and so it's a whole thing. I enjoy it thoroughly, so keep that in mind when grouping those together. Anyway, on my right hand side, I've got Emergency Tactics. This has got a 15-second cooldown. This basically takes the shield, turns it into a heal, turns Adlo into a much powerful healing ability. Then I have Recitation, Exo, and Fey Blessing here for an AoE, for some kind of prep work, etc. So that's pretty much what you see on the screen, but I know I've kind of obviously teased a lot with the expanded cross hotbar, and you can see that over here with Surecast, Swiftcast, Resurrection, Chain Strategem, my Summon Seraph, my Aether Pact, and then my Summon Eos, and my Summon Selene. So those are my two summon abilities, and then obviously I can turn that into my Seraph as needed, which is very handy. That is the layout. There's not too much that I can, I think, give you other than this. This is how I prefer it. Again, muscle memory is key. Find what works for you. You might want your heals on the left side and your attacks on the right side. It doesn't necessarily matter. What matters is that you're able to react and not have to think about where you've placed your skills. So therein lies the rub. We talk about the HUD. Let's go into our HUD here and talk about kind of the layout itself. For this, I use hotbar 3. The reason is because I can hide the inactive slots, and it hides the numbers on them. I'm not actively using a keyboard or mouse to trigger this, so I want as clean of a UI as all possible. Then here I've got my Fairy Gauge, my Aether Flow Gauge, my Process Bar, my various enfeeblements that I have stacked over here. I have my Status Info Other up here on the top. This is kind of my food buff. This is kind of my general stat. You can actually go into your settings right here, and you can split them out all by the various different kind of groups to kind of give you the most control over it. Or you can also just stack them all together as one For me personally, I like them split out so I can kind of see both my enhancements and my enfeeblements together but separate. So it helps out a lot. I'll let you do you, but that's how that's set up. Anyway, again, hotbar 3, fairy gauge, etc. Over here on the left, I got my fairy or my enemy list, and then have my party list, limit bar gauge, etc. You guys can take a screenshot. Like most of the rest of the stuff that you guys want to place really is just kind of up to you. I moved my experience bar and my HP and MP up here to the top. I'm not necessarily so concerned with it. It's, you know, I kind of play around and go back and forth with it, but I really think the most important thing is your W cross hotbar left, your main cross hotbar, and hotbar 3, kind of in this kind of wheelhouse. I spent a lot of time visually here. If you needed to, you can always switch like different HUD layout styles. So you can end up, let me go ahead and say yes. So you can kind of have multiple different kind of settings and kind of play around with what ends up working best for you. And you can designate this all by roles as well. So kind of play around with that. We do have some guides that go into the UI, go into that. So check a look for the channel for those videos already. They're still definitely relevant because the settings have not been changed so dramatically since we've last made those videos. Anyway, that's the system HUD layout, but under character configuration, this is where the bulk of the work exists. Now, as a healer on a controller, I tend to use the up and down arrows to target and go through my party list. So that way when I do left and right, it won't actually target me. You can see I'm kind of targeting these two different players right here, left and right, because they're not my party. If they were my party, they would not be targeted. This is going to help me basically focusing on targeting the enemies and doing different things like that, and allowing me to cycle through my party list using the up and down arrow keys. But there's an important aspect to that. If I go into system config, if I go into character config, if I do it right, under control settings, and then under my target filters, you'll see that whenever my weapon is drawn, my focus is going to be on all enemies, aggroing enemies, and duty specific enemies. And then when my weapon is sheathed, I have non-party player characters, alliance members, all enemies, aggros, NPCs, and objects, etc. So that obviously when I'm running around town or doing different things like that, I can target different things. The reason for this is that up and down obviously does my party list, and that's kind of how I cycle through them. I can enable custom filtering that allows me to target left and right. So if I just want to focus in on my friends or my party or my enemies, things like that, you can kind of build in these custom filters, and you can easily access them by holding down the left B and using one of the face buttons, in my case A, B, X, Y, to filter through those. But for the most part, again, this is kind of be why I have party members turned off, because up and down will cycle through them. For me, I find that's very fast. You might not find that to be the same, so I'll let you play around with what works best for you. But targeting and your filters are really kind of a big key point and key takeaway. So the next thing we want to go into is kind of our hotbar settings here. Here you can see I can turn off display the hotbar numbers. This is what helps keep my UI a little bit cleaner. I can also display how I want my hotbars set up in the first place. So hotbar 3 is set by a 12:1. I can change that and easily switch that to the different orientation, etc. It doesn't necessarily matter. I'm gonna hit close. Yeah, I want to discard changes. My head got messed up. All right, get back your hotbar 3. There we go. All right, perfect. Now, back into character config, hotbar settings. You can play around with what works best. The turning them on and off is how these are displayed on the system, and you can also have a couple different things regarding your pet hotbar as well. Now, since the changes for Shadowbringers are, you don't have to play around with your pets. They are going to be more controlled, and they're more your actions than your pet actions. It ends up being a little bit easier. The next tab we want to talk about is our sharing tab. This is going to allow you to say what hotbars are shared and what are specific to the job itself. When it is shared, if you look at my cross hotbar right hand side, I've got sprint, I've got my Aether current thing, and as soon as I finish that, that's going to be done. My mounts, I've got my limit break, and I got some targeting things. That means any job I play, these are always in the same spot. I don't ever have to think about them. This comes back to muscle memory. But over here, this is job specific. So if I change my job, this is going to be different, and that's how this is controlled. So you can see hotbar 1 through 7, which is essentially the PC keyboard mouse hotbars right here. Those are specific to the job itself, while the cross hotbar 1 through 6 are specific to the job itself. 7 and 8 are shared, and for the PC, for the hotbar itself, 8 through 10 are shared. Under cross hotbar, you see lots of different options here. So you can turn on and display the control guide if necessary. You can enable duty action input. This is whenever you're in a duty action that is, holding down right trigger and pressing down on the right stick or left stick. That's going to turn that on and off. Using the mount hotbars on, etc. I am in hold. To use all of these features, you need to be in hold mode. If you're playing around with toggle or mixed, you're going to have certain things that are limited to you, like the double cross hotbar can only be used in hold. It cannot be used in toggle or mixed, etc. Now I say always display W cross hotbar. Also to return to the cross hotbar after W cross bar input, and this is an example of me using Lucid Dreaming, and now I'm still holding the left trigger and I'm back over here. Same thing applies over here, and I'm back over here to be able to cast add low, etc. So it makes it really fast. And then I also have positioned the W cross hotbar separately from the cross hotbar. This allows me in the HUD to be able to kind of position these a little off center, kind of put these around wherever it makes the most need and necessary, where it works out the best. So that's almost the last piece. And so I keep showing this and you're like, okay, well, how do I set that? Well, because you can't drag items onto here. You can't drag items onto here. These are set to specific hotbars. So the expanded controls with left trigger plus right trigger. This is boom, boom. You can see cross hotbar to left. That ties back into the sharing tab where that's specific. But then if I hold right trigger, new left trigger, that's cross hotbar 7 right. This is shared. Sprint is always in the same spot for every job. It shouldn't be on your hotbars whatsoever. That's always in the same spot. Let muscle memory work for you. Then I have enable cross hotbar with simultaneous left tap and right tap. And I'm also currently only enabling 4 buttons. You can also enable the direction buttons to get more space, more skills there if needed. So I've got cross hotbar 3 left and 3 right. Again, job specific. So if we go back here, if we close this out, if I wanted to show you the 3s, you can see right here, that's right there. And right here is right there. And that's how I would set it. I would have to be on set 3 if I'm using 3 and drag and drop those onto the bar itself. That is pretty much how that works. Same thing for 2. I've got 2 left because 7 right is something different. And that's just kind of be how it functions. That's pretty much everything I think I want you to know right now. You can also kind of play around with enable like auto hotbar switching. I have that turned off, but it might help you turn it on if necessary. And then enable customization for when your weapon is sheathed and when your weapon is drawn. Because I don't want to be able to, like when in combat, kind of tab through various things, I've got it when my weapon is sheathed, I will cycle through hotbar 6, 7, and 8, and 1. Now if I just turn that off and say apply, now what it's going to do if I just hit the right bumper, it's going to cycle through me and my pet, or I can go ahead and hold down the right bumper and cycle through the different hotbars as it relates to the different buttons on the screen here as well. If I didn't have a pet, you could actually just press right bumper and it would filter to the next one in line, and that's also controlled in your settings to be able to kind of say, hey, I want to tab to the pet hotbar or I don't. So that should hopefully help out a lot, and let me know if it doesn't, or if you need me to clarify anything as it relates to these settings. I obviously say hide unassigned slots. If you can see here, if I turn that off, you can see the little gray spots, which can be a little bit annoying. Turn that on, have a real clean looking UI, and go to Tim. Guys, for Work to Game, my name's Brian. Hopefully this has been a help. Let me know if you have any questions, like I said, in the comments below. Again, thanks and shout out to all of our members here on YouTube for helping support and making these guides possible. Consider becoming one or thank one if you see them in the comments for their support of the channel. And regardless of that, just thank you for being here. Thank you for your comments and your generosity as it comes to your time. So we really always look forward to hearing from you, regardless of the guides, the opinion pieces, and more. So that's it. I'm going to wrap this video up. Be sure to check out my other guides as it relates to Scholar, Summoner, and all the jobs as I continue to get them up to cap and then kind of try to master them for you so you can hopefully have some good times jumping into the game itself. Anyway, for Work to Game, my name is Brian. Thanks so much for watching this video. Hope you have a phenomenal time, and I'll see you next time. Take care. Whoa, you guys are the best. Jorge, Kyle, Philip, 31 Edwards, Rock Druid, Corey Longwith, Aaron, Axis, Hambone, Lady Wild Plays, CN Navs, this is going too fast, Christopher, Phil, Shun, Dragons, Soul, Keen, Knights, Assassin, Carlos, Sherry, Robert, Leyland, Davon, Tim, Jojo World, Terrace, Sora, Scrublord, Trevor, Mill, Little Almond, 70s, Kimber, Tyler, oh my god, I'm so sorry, Cody, Legend, Carlos, Endless, Jonathan, Jade, Sai, Derek, Brandon, Aaron, Riku, Daryl, Chemistrol, Lauren, The Wolf, the Gar, Kelly, Anthony, Solid, John, Huskree, oh my god, everybody, Dark Later, Christopher, Vestments, Sean, Nopi, Brian, Tom, Dylan, Silent, whew, I missed your names. I'm sorry. I love you all. Oh my gosh, that was tough.